In many countries, learning a foreign language has been introduced as a part of primary school education. One reason for this is the common idea that children are naturally better language learners than adults. Another is that, nowadays, it's important to make children interested in other cultures.
This report provides an overview of consumer trends in global agricultural markets. It is subdivided into chapters covering the arable, dairy and meat market sectors. For each sector, the drivers underlying consumer trends are analyzed. The most notable of these are the increasing demand for organic products and heightened public concern regarding environmental issues such as food system emissions.
The provision of accurate and authoritative statistical information strengthens modern societies. It provides a basis for decisions to be made on such things as where to open schools and hospitals, how much money to spend on welfare payments, and even which football players to replace at halftime.
At the beginning of each fiscal year, funds are allocated to each state account in accordance with the university's financial plan. Funds are allocated to each account by the object of expenditure. Account managers are responsible for ensuring that adequate funds are available in the appropriate object before initiating transactions to use the funds.
Market research is a vital part of the planning of any business. However experienced you or your staff may be in a particular field, if you are thinking of introducing a service to a new area, it is important to find out what the local population thinks about it first.
The diversity of human language may be compared to the diversity of the natural world. Just as the demise of plant species reduces genetic diversity and deprives humanity or potential medical and biological resources, so extinction of language takes with it a wealth of culture, art, and knowledge.
Currently, integration is increasingly needed in the business environment. This need emerges from the efficiency and synergy requirements necessary in a complex and turbulent environment. In other words, integration is needed to facilitate coordination, which is again related to the building of competitive advantage.
The brain is divided into two hemispheres, called the left and the right hemisphere. Each hemisphere provided a different set of functions, behaviors, and controls. The right hemisphere is often called the creative side of the brain, while the left hemisphere is the logical or analytical side of the brain. Modern buildings have to achieve certain performance requirements, at least to satisfy those of building codes, to provide a safe, healthy, and comfortable environment. However, these conditioned environments demand resources in energy and materials which are both limited in supply, to build and operate.
The rules of geography often determine how a country develops. Countries with a mountainous border have, as a general rule, been much safer than ones with borders that spread over vast flat lands. At some point, the size of a country becomes problematic, as long supply chains can become unsustainable over time.
Traditionally, scientific research has been undertaken by universities, government laboratories, or companies in their research and development departments. Recently, however, professional scientists have sometimes asked ordinary members of the public to help them, especially when they need to collect a huge amount of data and cannot manage to do this on their own. Such activity is known as citizen science.
Natural science is a branch of science concerned with the description, prediction, and understanding of natural phenomena, based on empirical evidence from observation and experimentation. Mechanisms such as peer review and repeatability of findings are used to try to ensure the validity of scientific advances.
Legislation is made so that everyone in society knows which behaviors are acceptable and which are not. Laws cover all aspects of our lives, including protecting the health and safety of people at work and those affected by work activities, including those who receive care and support.
When we recycle, used materials are converted into new products, reducing the need to consume natural resources. If used materials are not recycled, new products are made by extracting fresh, raw material from the earth, through mining and forestry. Recycling helps conserve important raw materials and protects natural habitats for the future.
A university is a lot more than just classes and exams. The university is a concept that offers you a host of possibilities to develop both academically and personally. Find out about the different projects, clubs, and societies that are in your university. You will definitely find something you are interested in.
The coastal wetlands have environmental and economic importance. Wetlands provide natural wealth. They have important filtering capabilities. As the runoff water passes, they retain excess nutrients and some pollutants. They maintain water flow during dry periods. Thousands of people depend on groundwater for drinking.
The core of the problem was the immense disparity between the country's productive capacity and the ability of people to consume. Great innovations in productive techniques during and after the war raised the output of industry beyond the purchasing capacity of U.S. farmers and wage earners.
When governments do not or cannot provide the financial support needed to improve the country's hospitals and schools, citizens themselves may decide to raise the necessary funds through community events. The hard work of individuals can help bring essential services to local communities, but such projects should be in addition to, not instead of government spending.
A hazard assessment should be performed for work involving distillations of organic liquids and should thoroughly address issues relating to residual water and possible decomposition of the solvent in question, as well as the physical placement of the distillation apparatus and heating equipment to be employed.
You may sometimes notice a particular speech pattern where the speaker's voice rises at the end of a sentence. The rise occurs even when it is unnecessary. The speaker, therefore, sounds as if they are asking a question. As a result, they often sound less confident in what they're saying.
Deafness is a sensory disability responsible for communication disorder, sometimes impairing social life. In children, the hearing is an important concern for all stakeholders and systematic neonatal screening may be called for. On the other hand, in the adult, it is rarely tested, and patients come for consultation when their audiometric status is already badly impaired.
A neural network is a series of algorithms that endeavors to recognize underlying relationships in a set of data through a process that mimics the way the human brain operates. In this sense, neural networks refer to systems of neurons, either organic or artificial in nature.
Another method government uses to try and influence the private sector is economic planning. For a long time now, socialist and communist states have used planning as an alternative to the price mechanism, organizing production and distributing their resources according to social and strategic needs, rather than based on purely economic considerations.
If you need to locate a title in the university library, start by accessing the library's directory. This can be done from any computer that is connected to the university server. You can search for the title's name, author, or publication date. Details of the title's code and directions to its location will then appear.
Individual birds may be sensitive enough to identify each other through their calls. Many birds that nest in colonies can locate their chicks using their calls. Calls are sometimes distinctive enough for individual identification even by human researchers involved in ecological studies.
Artificial intelligence has advanced dramatically as a field of study since the early days of slow and cumbersome computers. It can now be regarded as a mature discipline. Unsurprisingly, many authors have aspired to produce the standard textbook on the subject. Here, we review a worthy contender for that title whose second edition has just been published.
Your thesis must be formatted and bound correctly before submission for assessment, and this guidance document specifies how this should be done. It is extremely important that these stipulations are accurately followed. Failure to do so will result in the thesis being returned to you for amendment. You will only be eligible to graduate once these conditions are met.
Environmental education is a learning process that increases people's knowledge and awareness about the environment and associated challenges, develops the necessary skills and expertise to address the challenges, and fosters attitudes, motivations, and commitments to make informed decisions and take responsible action.
Education in the UK is heavily infused with liberal ideas of freedom of thought and personal responsibility. Students are regularly invited to reflect on how their behaviour affects the world around them. The curriculum references not only British culture but also many other cultures from around the world.
Effective communication happens when a complete message is sent and fully received and understood by an audience. Good communication is about getting the right message to the right person in the right medium at the right time. Depending on the nature of the message and audience, the audience may then have the opportunity to engage in a productive discussion of the message.
Selecting the right degree is an important decision, and it's natural to consider how particular subjects affect future career opportunities. While business courses are obviously popular choices, creative subjects like literature or philosophy can be just as useful. Such courses encourage creative thinking skills, and companies value employees who can solve problems by looking at issues from different sides.
People who feel they sleep perfectly well may still be troubled by excessive daytime sleepiness because of a variety of underlying medical illnesses. A sleep disturbance may be a symptom of a health issue or an adverse effect of therapy to treat the problem. The stress of chronic illness can also cause insomnia and daytime drowsiness.
Legal writing is usually less discursive than writing in other humanities subjects, and precision is more important than variety. Sentence structure should not be too complex, it is usually unnecessary to make extensive use of adjectives or adverbs, and consistency of terms is often required.
The worldwide effort to cut global carbon emissions is gaining momentum, infiltrating all aspects of industry, including the growth in electric cars and environmental goods and services. This move towards building more sustainable economies encourages investment and creates job opportunities. As a result, many countries have crossed the threshold into a new industrial era.
The preparation of abstract is an intellectual effort requiring general familiarity with the subject to bring out of the points of an author's argument course for skills and experience. Consequently, a considerable amount of qualified manpower that could be used to advantage in other ways must be diverted to task of facilitating or to information.
It seems that language appeared from nowhere since no other species has anything resembling human language. However, other animals do possess basic systems for perceiving and producing sounds that enable them to communicate. These systems may have been in place before the appearance of language.
The diversity of human language may be compared to the diversity of the natural world. Just as the demise of plant species reduces genetic diversity and deprives humanity or potential medical and biological resources, so extinction of language takes with it a wealth of culture, art and knowledge.
For any marketing course that requires the development of marketing plans, such as marketing management, marketing strategy, and segmentation support marketing, this is the only planning handbook that guides students through the step-by-step creation of customized marketing plan, while offering commercial software to aid in the process.
New research shows that during the global financial crisis, workers who stayed in jobs did not reduce their working hours, despite the claims that cuts in hours have led to job losses. A study found that the life of people who stayed with the same employer remained relatively unchanged.
There is a long history of diseases that have spread from great apes to humans, including some of the most aggressive infectious diseases to emerge in recent decades. But the transmission, as it turns out, isn't one-sided. Humans can also harm the great apes as they share so many genetic and physiological properties with us.
Even with good inventory management software, you still need to actually count your inventory to make sure what you have in stock matches what you think you have. Businesses use different techniques, including an annual physical inventory that counts every single item and ongoing spot checking.
There are lots of different ways you could conduct market research and collect customer data, but you don't have to limit yourself to just one research method. 4 common types of market research techniques include surveys, interviews, focus groups, and customer observation. Which method you use may vary based on your business type.
Cancer cells are cells that divide relentlessly, forming solid tumors or flooding the blood with abnormal cells. Cell division is a normal process used by the body for growth and repair. A parent cell divides to form 2 daughter cells, which are used to build new tissue or to replace cells that have died because of aging or damage.
Spending time in nature can improve physical and mental health. An activity known as the forest bath takes this belief one step further. The basic idea is that, to get the maximum benefit from nature, it's important to focus on the smells, sounds and general feel of the environment. Therefore, forest baths involve far more than a simple walk outside.
A research study has concluded that physiological measurements taken from wearable device sensors might actually be able to indicate abnormal fluctuations relating to infections. It is also thought that this continuous surveillance of an individual's health may aid the prevention and containment of strains of influenza.
Statistics is the practice of collecting and analyzing data. It involves taking a sample from a small fraction of a wider population. The information gained from the sample allows conclusions to be drawn about the population as a whole without having to gather data on a larger scale.
Building the emotional strength and independence of learners is believed to be as important as the knowledge gained in traditional lessons. While not wanting to create an additional subject on the curriculum, teachers are considering how to enable students to develop teamwork and leadership skills. Activities outside the classroom are thought to be essential to achieving this aim.
This research study investigates the effects of different types of music on wild monkeys. The aim of the study is to examine changes in monkey behavior when exposed to music, particularly in terms of social interaction levels. This paper reports several findings and identifies potential applications for the animal conservation sector.
It makes sense for experts in a subject to work together in the same place. Universities are therefore organized into various departments. However, global problems are often extremely complicated, and specialists from different areas should work together to solve them. In this article, it is argued that economists and scientists benefit if they combine their skills on shared research projects.
Proponents of hypnosis promote it as being a heightened state of consciousness in which the subject is more susceptible to suggestions. This mental state may enable the subject to more effectively work through something that is holding them back. Whether or not it actually works is a topic that is hotly debated.
There is no single method of learning that guarantees success. How we learn depends on many different factors. And what works best for you will not necessarily be the same approach used by other students even if they study the same course. We are all unique as learners, although some patterns emerge in groups of students.
The Founding Fathers established constitutional protections for the press because they understood that leaving the watchdog function to partisan politicians wouldn't necessarily serve the public interest. Both sides have too many incentives to preserve the status quo and ignore problems that elude quick fixes.
The semiconductor industry has been able to improve the performance of electric systems for more than 4 decades by making ever smaller devices. However, this approach will soon encounter both scientific and technical limits, which is why the industry is exploring a number of alternative device technologies.
This book is no ordinary book, and should not be read through from beginning to end. It contains many different adventures, and the path you take will be determined on the choices you make along the way. The success or failure of your mission will depend on the decisions you make, so think carefully before choosing.
Applied research collaborations with partners in our community produce outcomes that drive innovation in our region and produce direct economic and social benefits to our communities. Research projects enhance the quality of college programs by providing students a learning opportunity that goes beyond the classroom.
The therapy involves discussion of past activities and experiences with another person or group of people, usually with the aid of tangible prompts such as photographs, household and other familiar items from the past, music and archived sound recordings. It also involves group meetings in which participants are encouraged to talk about past events at least once a week.
There is an intrinsic bond between scientific advancement and skepticism. The scientific worldview has freed us from prejudice, ignorance, and the ironclad rule of authority. Scientists have earned the trust of the public opinion in matters of truth, learning, and understanding. Experimental results are the final judges in the court of science.
In urban areas, especially in the rapidly urbanizing cities of the developing world, problems and issues of municipal solid waste management are of immediate importance. Most governments have acknowledged this importance. However, rapid population growth overwhelms the capacity of most municipal authorities to provide even the most basic services.
What makes an idea creative is a mix of ingredients that includes a balance between words that commonly appear together and words that do not. Thus, a creative idea is not simply an idea that includes novel ingredients. It is a combination of words that are novel and appearing together balanced with combinations of ingredients that are more familiar.
We humans have the ability to perceive things through our senses. Even when it has gone out of sense, we still have retained a faint impression of such in our minds. The retained impression of stimuli into our brain is called memory, and the collection of episodes of this memory can then be referred to as experience.
As a new student at the university, you will receive a campus card when you enroll. It is important that you always carry this card with you when you're on the campus because it is proof of your identity. You will also need it to borrow books from the library, access certain buildings, and pay for items in the cafeteria.
Perhaps the most measurable benefit of the program has been the opportunity to work in small groups, something that is difficult to arrange in such a desperate organization. Many officers would have worked together for 30 years, but still would not know others' strengths and weaknesses.
The department determines whether or not the candidate has passed the examination. In cases where an appearance for the final public oral examination would constitute a substantial financial hardship for the candidate, the Director of Graduate Studies may recommend to the Dean of the graduate school that the examination be waived.
The great advantage of early rising is the head start it gives us in our day's work. The early riser has done a large amount of hard work before other men even get out of bed. In the early morning, the mind is fresh, and there are few sounds or other distractions. In many cases, the early riser also finds time to take some exercise in the fresh morning air.
Sleepwalking or talking occurs when a sleeping person exhibits behaviors associated with being awake or appears to be awake but is actually still sleeping. Sleep talking happens when a person vocalizes anything from a few words to a whole conversation in sleep. Though alcohol is considered socially acceptable to consume in most parts of the world, heavy alcohol use can prove detrimental to a person's physical and mental well-being and the physiological health of their brain. Heavy or long-term alcohol use can result in learning and memory issues, and can also eventually lead to the mental health conditions.
Dogs are extraordinarily attentive and have an uncanny ability to predict what their owners will do, whether getting the dog a meal or preparing to go on a walk. Experiments show that dogs and wolves can be astute readers of human body language using the direction of our gaze to locate hidden food. The initial challenge of knowledge management is synthesizing the information processing technologies allowing the organization to survive and thrive on knowledge. Knowledge management is not just knowing everything the organization knows. It is creating a synthesis between the people and the information to the point that the whole is more than the sum of the parts.
Augustus was given the powers of an absolute monarch, but he presented himself as the preserver of republican traditions. He treated the Senate, or State Council, with great respect, and was made consul year after year. He successfully reduced the political power of the army by retiring many soldiers, but giving them land or money to keep their loyalty. The highest temperature recorded on Earth has been measured in three major ways: air, ground, and satellite observation. Air observation is used as the standard measurement due to persistent issues with unreliable ground and satellite readings. Air measurements are noted by the World Meteorological Organization and others as the standard to be used for determining the official record.
Scientists have produced an implantable medical device that mimics the primary function of blood vessels, but goes a number of steps further than its natural counterparts. These electronic blood vessels can be used to facilitate the flow of blood, as demonstrated in rabbits, but could also be configured to assist in drug delivery, wound healing, and even gene therapy.
Students write far less by hand today than they used to in the past. Many universities allow the use of laptops instead of pen and paper in lectures. However, it seems using them does not always help the learning process. Some research shows that most students remember information better when they write notes by hand.
Ethical hacking involves an authorized attempt to gain unauthorized access to a computer system, application, or data. Carrying out an ethical hack involves duplicating strategies and actions of malicious attackers. This practice helps to identify security vulnerabilities that can then be resolved before a malicious attacker has the opportunity to exploit them.